I want to move on to a topic. We've been talking a lot about marijuana and legalization in many states, but in a surprising bit of news this week, it was announced that Denver will become the first city to allow people to use marijuana in certain bars, restaurants, and other spaces. I will admit, we were reading about this, it's very confusing, but voters approved a proposition that says Mile High City businesses and spaces may be able to get a license for marijuana use. They would first have to get approval from their neighbors. And there are a lot of elements of it that are a bit confusing. It doesn't sound like you would be able to smoke it inside or maybe potentially anywhere, but it raises a lot of interesting issues. This vote was so close.
That it took weeks to count it, right?
It took, a full week before the proponents and supporters were able to claim victory. Really a heated debate because, look, it's a heated debate whether or not to legalize marijuana, obviously. But this really is taking it to the next level if you're going to start allowing it in public spaces.
And we're going to start seeing more of this as marijuana gets legalized in certain states for recreational use. There are so many little nuances that have to be addressed, like how much can you have in your possession, what can you grow at home, and now, well, if you're in a bar, can you use it? So, I mean, this is a whole new
Well, what are your thoughts, personally? I'm curious. Didn't know I was going to put you on the spot, did you?
I mean, a little weed oil martini has a certain, has a certain panache to it, but you know, it's a slippery slope because it's mixing things that maybe haven't been tried before, and people may not have combined the two, and you're going to get people are going to have potentially reactions. They're definitely going to get more high, and then that's a whole issue about driving and
to clarify, patrons would need to bring their own marijuana. I will say the reason that, look, there is a reason why bars and restaurants would want this law to pass because, well, also marijuana is an appetite stimulant.
They're going to get the munchies.
You talk about
bring it on.
Away. I will say this. I have been a proponent. I do not think marijuana should be illegal, okay? Having said that, I also do not believe that marijuana should become ubiquitous. I still remember as a child.
Does that mean like everywhere?
It means like everywhere, buddy. Okay. But I distinctly remember as a child going and watching a fireworks display in downtown St. Louis, and the people right next to us were, I didn't know what it was at the time, but they were smoking marijuana. And as a kid, it was an incredibly powerful smell, and I remember I felt sick afterwards. It was really strong, and that's my only concern with all this is it gets back to if this ever got to a place where people are smoking, it's secondhand smoke no matter what kind of smoke you're talking about. You got kids. You have to be very, very careful. And with this, it's very confusing, and I think maybe it needs to be confusing right now as this all plays out, but I just don't want it to be at a place where you're hopping on, you know, well, it would never probably happen on public transportation, but I just don't love the idea if everyone everywhere is just smoking marijuana.
Well, I think we're going to see it. It's just a matter of time that the cigar bar surge that we saw, I think we're going to have the weed bar surge, and which would be okay. And along with that, and I hope that when people are there, that there's the patrons there or the people that run it are going to watch out for people's well-being to make sure that they're not leaving intoxicated, getting in a car, etc.
And maybe that's why now it has to be a bit confusing. I can see, like you said, evolution over time. You know, now there are even places where smoking is prohibited, usually there's an area where smoking is allowed. You mentioned cigar bars, and maybe it will evolve to a place where, okay, well, here's your neighborhood cigar bar, here's your neighborhood marijuana bar? I don't know what you would call it.
No, it's different. You know, here in California, it's sometimes, you know, I'm not a marijuana user, really, but it's now legal. You know, think about it, that it's kind of crazy.
It is kind of ironic that it is called the Mile High City. High.
We have parts of California that are mile high.
A new beverage in California is available with a prescription, but is it just a prescription to party? It's called a Cannabis, and it is marijuana-infused wine. Now, I have to say, most states where marijuana is now legal, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, et cetera, it's still illegal to infuse alcohol with it. California currently the only state where this cannabis concoction is sold. A half a bottle could cost anywhere from $120 to $400.
That's a lot.
Woo! That's high.
That's a lot.
That's high.
Yes, I mean, that's like paying for a very expensive Cabernet or whatever.
So I'm curious your two thoughts on this, because one of the big concerns when marijuana was legalized is, okay, are people going to start now mixing this with other CNS depressants? And a lot of people don't like the concept here of mixing the two.
Mixing the two together, you can't predict the response when it's infused like that. When you have the two, the alcohol, the depressant effect of the alcohol, and then the marijuana effect that you can't always predict how you're going to react.
Well, that's the big question I have. Is it's called crossfading and not necessarily understanding the concentration. I think that's a big issue with a lot of things if you're drinking them. You know, let's use the example of who's ever gone out for cocktails and the bartender has a heavy hand and you're just getting one margarita and you get done with it and you're hammered because they put more alcohol than you expected. I think that's one of the dangers is when you don't really know. For instance, if you go and you have just a 4-ounce glass of red wine, probably about 13.5% alcohol by volume, you're pretty sure what's going to happen to you. I think when you start, thank goodness they're not infusing hard alcohol right now, although that may be coming, because then that's this, you just don't really know what the effect's going to be. I think people just need to be aware of that.
We talk about 1 glass for women, 2 glasses for men as what should be your limit. Well, this is off the table because you have no clue. Like Travis said, 1 glass may put you under the table.
Right. I think it puts a bad spin on marijuana, but I think it's interesting because I feel as though a long time ago someone said alcohol is okay, and then that same person said marijuana is bad. And so I think like marijuana kind of got a bad reputation a long time ago when there are medicinal purposes for marijuana and there are no medicinal purposes for alcohol. And really, if you go out with someone and they drink excessive alcohol, they're acting like a crazy person. Someone uses some marijuana and they just want a snack, you know? Well,
I think it's the reality of any time you're talking about a substance that can have an effect on the central nervous system. Truth is, anything in excess is problematic. I think the most important thing is in states where marijuana has become legalized, if it is legal and you're an adult and you choose to try it, just know and be careful of dosages, because again, it's like with alcohol. First time someone tries it, it makes a big difference. Are they drinking a beer, a glass of wine, or are they doing hard liquor? Because the first time, we've had kids on this show before who admit the first time they did a few shots and the next thing you know, they're out. So just understanding how this has an impact on your body is really
something
important.
That California is the only one state where it's legal. So that's telling you something right there. We beat Colorado on this one.
Drew's so proud.
No, not really.